Hi, Professor Larson. This is Jake Harrell, and the building I chose was the Kemper Arena roof collapse in Kansas City that took place in 1979. So, some facts about this building. It cost $23.3 million to build. It was built in 1973, so it took about 6 years before the collapse happened. The project was completed in 18 months. It won an AIA award for design in 1976. And the next slide is very interesting. That talks a little bit about that. The capacity was 17,600. And the main purpose was for basketball games, hockey games, and concerts, things like that. So this fact I gave a slide all to itself just because of how crazy it is. In 1979, the year that it collapsed, the National AIA Conference, American Institute of Architects Conference, took place in this arena the day before the roof collapsed. So the roof collapsed on June 14th, and the conference was the day before on the 13th. So I thought that was completely crazy. I can't imagine that the collapse would have happened when all those people were in there. Luckily, there was one maintenance person the night of the collapse, and he got out in time. No one was hurt. But as you can see, a whole lot of damage took place. So the design, it was designed by German architect, I'm going to butcher this, but Helmuth Jahn in 1973. The main structure, as you can see right from this picture, is comprised of three huge, giant space frame portals. I heard a couple articles call them that, but I want to say these are around 150 feet long, made of pure steel. The roof is a reinforced concrete roof supported by steel trusses with open web steel joists. And one of the kind of key components of this whole building and why it collapsed were the hangars that were used. 6 hangars had hinges at the top and bottom, while the other 36 had hinges only at the top. And I know in this class we talk a lot about how, in certain designs, it's important to have the strength and the stability, but also to allow for movement. So they incorporated that into this design, but as you'll be able to see, or you probably already know, they didn't do a very good job of the original design. So some causes and factors. A couple of articles talked about the pooling on top of the roof of water, and I just looked up a definition of pooling, and basically it's just the accumulation of unwanted water in an area, which causes deterioration of materials over time. And the roof for this building was designed to act like a reservoir and slowly release the rainwater into the Kansas City sewer system during heavy rains, is what it said. And that's because the sewer system in Kansas City at the time was very poor, so they wanted a way to kind of hold on to that water and divert it back into the sewer system slowly to not overwhelm it. And so because of that, the way they designed the roof, from my understanding, is they raised the roof drains, I want to say 6 to 9 inches higher than the roof level, so that during, you need a lot of rain for the water to actually drain into the sewer system, but for most of the days it would either just sit on top of the roof, or hopefully it would evaporate over time. But you know, you don't have to be an expert to know that having water sitting in a, you know, in a spot for a prolonged period of time is not going to be good for any type of material, especially steel. So let's see, a couple of the other factors were the bolts that were used for the hangers, and I'll talk a little more about that in the next slide. And it just wasn't designed correctly for the type of live loads that were applied to the building, and also not enough hangers were used. Okay, so a couple lessons learned. The building needed a better way to drain stormwater, or a better way to account for the variable live loads. Talking about the bolts, I think I skipped over one of my bullet points, but one of the reasons that the roof failed was because of the bolts that were used. And this quote here says, "The high-strength steel bolts used in the arena had warnings against their use in variable loading conditions. However, this may have been ignored because of the coefficient of safety of the bolts under the design loads appeared to be sufficiently high." And that's also relevant to this class because we always talk about the coefficient of safety, and however it might have been sufficient for the design load, but you need to think about how they're going to be used and what other forces are going to be acting on them. So as far as the design was concerned, they were adequate, but based on the way that this building operates, there's a lot of lateral movement that was in the design, and these bolts were not the best for that type of setting. So probably should have researched some better bolts for this type of building. It needed a better combination of strength and flexibility in the hanger assembly. There just wasn't enough hangers from my research, and based on the weight of the dead load plus the live load, there should have been at least another 20 hangers, is what some experts say. So I would say, to sum it all up, having the way that the roof drained, and the pooling of the water, the bolts that were used, and the hangers all accounted for this failure of over 43,000 square feet of roof collapsed during this project. Luckily, no one was harmed, but that's a big deal for a $23.3 million project to have basically its entire roof cave in. So very interesting project, and I learned a lot. And here are my sources that you can check out. Thank you very much.